It can't be that great of a day considering the Nationals did lose the series against the Braves. But when you talk about this, Lane Thomas, first 2020 season for the Nationals since 2016, and also Jackson Rutledge and his performance against the Braves.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter or X, whatever the heck you want to call it, at Ryan Clary 11, and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals to get your latest Nationals news and notes. And of course, just anything Washington Nationals or baseball related. Later on in today's show, Nationals legend, clear and simple, 2019 World Series champs, one of the best trades that this franchise made over the last decade. Sean Doolittle officially retired from baseball. We're going to get into that and really just kind of discuss the career that Doolittle had here in Washington, D.C., because he spent a good portion of his career here in the nation's capital, but most importantly, he was an integral piece to this organization and as well as to that World Series winning team in 2019. We're going to give him the respect that he deserves in the third segment of today's show. But it's also a Monday, which is a National Stock Report Monday. Who's been up? Who's been down? That's your latest individual performances for this Nationals team, really over the last week, but for some cases, a little bit longer than that. I'll discuss that and tell you who's been hot and who's been not a little bit later on. But let's start off with Lane Thomas completing a 2020 season. And while some people, including myself, I kind of look beyond this, because when you look at the players who do this, Lane Thomas, I believe, is the 17th player in Major League Baseball to do this so far this season. There will be more. How many more? Who really knows at this moment in time? But the moral of the story is really the integral piece of this story, in my opinion. When we talked about Lane Thomas entering this year, we all knew he kind of had that 20 home run, 20 stolen base potential, and to kind of get into that club of being a 2020 season member, because only 5 Nationals did that before this season. And those Nationals were Alfonso Soriano back in 2006. Ian Desmond had a stretch from 2012, 2013, and 2014 where he was a 2020 season member, and as well as Bryce Harper back in 2016 where he had 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases as well, or at least well over that, obviously. But that is what Lane Thomas did this year. Lane Thomas is now a part of that club, and what you see, those are elite names in that category. You have a former MVP with Bryce Harper. You have Alfonso Soriano, someone who got into the 40-40 club at one point in his career here in Washington, D.C. He did that. And then Ian Desmond, who was just an above-average, good shortstop for the Nationals and really kind of got that momentum going back in the early 2010s. Lane Thomas is now a part of that equation. And first and foremost, that's just awesome, because this isn't just a Lane Thomas story, in my opinion. This is kind of a development thing with the Nationals, because we all know the trade. 2021, you ship off John Lester at the last minute of the deadline, and you get some guy, Lane Thomas, back in return. We knew he was young. We knew he was about 24 years old when the Nationals traded for him, and he didn't really have all that many opportunities up in the big leagues to try to succeed. He was with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals were always competing back in 2019, 2020, and as well as that 2021 season. But Lane Thomas, ever since coming to the Nationals, something has clicked. But not only has it clicked, he has gotten better. He has developed, because he always had these skill sets. He's always been a 90-plus speed guy, considering the percentile that Baseball Savant has put on him. He's always had a little bit of that sneaky power, kind of like Trey Turner had back in the day. In 2021, leading the Nationals, a ton of home runs there, getting shipped off to LA. But that's the kind of sneaky pop that Turner had that also Lane Thomas has. Now, you talk about what Lane has done this year, and really what has taken the next step up in his game is one, he has stayed consistent. And I think when you're talking about Lane Thomas and just what has been good for him this year, is that he has had this steady clip of production. He hasn't really been too low, although at times, yes, if you take small sample sizes, even as of a few weeks ago, even in the last few weeks, Lane Thomas has struggled just a little bit. But when you're looking beyond that point, Lane Thomas was not supposed to be this. When you trade away a 90-year-old with John Lester, who was just no good for this organization anymore, the return that you have, it doesn't matter who you're getting back. The most likely option there is that it's not going to be that good of a baseball player. It's not. That just doesn't happen in Major League Baseball. But what happened with this is we have found something. And the fact that we even have to ask the question if Lane Thomas is going to be a part of this future, meaning is he going to be an everyday right fielder? Is he going to be in the middle of your lineup? Is this guy going to be at the top of your lineup? Whatever it is. The fact that we have to ask that question now just makes Lane Thomas a success story. It really does. And the reason why I say that is because of what we gave up for him. But even then, looking beyond all those numbers and all that trade scenario back in 21, Lane Thomas is a good ball player. This guy has the talent. He plays really well defensively. He's good at the plate. He's been hitting for average. He strikes out a lot. But if you're going to hit for power and average and steal bases, you can strike out however many times you want. Because he leads the team in strikeouts right now, in which is a pretty hefty rate, if we're being honest. But you're having a 2020 season. That's rare company in today's game. Now, obviously, it's a lot easier to steal more bases in 2023 because of the new rules. But still, he's in that club. And in 2023, Lane Thomas has been the Nationals MVP, as that what the local media awarded him. And that's what it should be, by the way. Lane Thomas has been our best player so far this season, accounting every statistical category that you look at. Lane Thomas has been the Nationals' best player, whether it be outfield assists, whether it be slugging, batting average, whatever you want to look at, Lane Thomas has been the guy to lean on for the Nationals. So shout out to him. A 2020 season. What an incredible 2023 for Lane Thomas. But I also want to highlight this because game one yesterday, the Nationals did get a win, and Jackson Rutledge has now thrown back-to-back really good games, and this one was way more impressive considering you're going up against the Braves. In this Braves lineup, it wasn't just some nobody lineup. This was against Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson. This is a team that is trying to get hot going into the postseason here because a lot of people just kind of like to say this. I think it's more so the modern game of baseball. Just rest your players. No, you should not rest your players in baseball heading into a postseason break. We all know how that goes. Hitters are streaky. You want to have them hot. Obviously, you want to have them healthy. But there's ways that you can kind of control that without getting them hurt. But regarding that point, Jackson Rutledge threw a great game yesterday. And again, 86 pitches and 5 innings pitched. He only threw 52 strikes. But even then, he had his stuff yesterday. Striking out 4 batters over those 5 innings, only gave up 3 hits, walked 2 batters. That was a good start for Jackson Rutledge, which again is just kind of a building block going into 2024. Because the big question for Rutledge this offseason will be, is he going to start off in the starting rotation staff? Or will he get sent down in AAA and try to work some things out and maybe get called back up again in May? Well, if Jackson Rutledge, I can tell you this much. If Yohan Adon, he proved himself in one start in 2021. Game 162 against the Red Sox, he looked really good. I believe he threw 5 innings pitched, struck out those 8 batters as well against a team that really needed to win with the Boston Red Sox. That was one start. And last year, the starting rotation entering the year was a lot worse than what it was this year. But I think with Jackson Rutledge, just based off his last 2 starts, and yes, his first start was a complete dud. But ever since then, he's settled in, he's throwing strikes, and most importantly, he's just having quality starts in which the back end of this rotation, and especially in the second half, they have not had quality starts. You've seen Trevor Williams really get hit around. You've seen Yohan Adon now really get hit around. Patrick Corbin has been getting hit around. The Nationals needed this. They kind of needed this little juice, and Jackson Rutledge got the job done yesterday. And again, this wasn't against the Chicago White Sox. This was against the Atlanta Braves, the best team in all of baseball, the best offense in all of baseball as well. This was a solid performance, and honestly, this was a win of a series for the Nationals. Yes, we didn't win the series. We probably could have. You had opportunities to, but they didn't. But even then, you won one game, and that one game came with Jackson Rutledge on the mound, in which I'm thrilled with. He looked good. The offense, the bullpen, everything about it kind of was held in check. And most importantly, we got the win. So all of these different things accounting for this series, it wasn't the best thing ever, but you still had good things with it. Starting off with Lane Thomas getting a 2020 season, C.J. Abrams making a few plays as well on Sunday, and then Jackson Rutledge topping it off with just a really solid quality start, in which have come in not too many situations so far in 2023 for this Nationals team. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And later on in today's show, we're going to discuss Sean Doolittle's retirement as Nationals legend, Washington, D.C. legend. He has officially retired. We'll discuss that and preview that later on. But next, it is a National stock report, as the Nationals, they've had some hot bats, but also not so hot pitching. We'll discuss that and tell you more about that. But let me tell you guys about our friends over at DoorDash. And missing syrup for your pancakes, or maybe you just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer? Well, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. And you guys have all trusted DoorDash before to deliver your restaurant and get the things that you want right then and there. Well, let me tell you, they can also do grocery stores. And this is what I do. As I live by myself now, I got to start cooking here. I don't really know what everything to cook, but I open up that DoorDash app. I can see everything that I want in my local grocery store. And then guess what? In about 30 minutes away, it is at my doorstep, ready to cook, ready to prepare everything that you need in one app. So get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONMLB at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms apply. That's 50% off, up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONMLB. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. And thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe over on YouTube at Locked On Nationals there. That is where you will get your daily video content, so you can see my big old face every single day. So let's get into this National stock report, as a lot of young guys didn't make the Nat stock report. Some good, some not so good. We'll discuss it. But let's start off with a stock up for Luis Garcia. And ever since coming up from AAA, something has clicked with Garcia. And even then, it's really more so the recent effect with him, because right now he's riding a 5-game hitting streak. And over these 5 games, he has 11 hits. He's got a home run. And it was also the opposite field, the left field there, which wasn't just a wall scraper. That was a couple rows deep in the left field. He got a hold of that thing. Also, he's got 3 doubles as well. Luis Garcia, this is the kind of production that we've been waiting for. This is the kind of production that we all thought that he could still put up. Now he's 23 years old. He's still not that 20-year-old back when we called him up in 2020. But Luis Garcia is showing us something. Is that, number one, he still has the hit tool. This guy can put the ball in play, and he's actually been really elite at that at this point. He doesn't strike out a lot, which I always have loved. And also, he just has good bat-to-ball skills in which the ball is always in play. The only issue is his pitch selection and really when he decides to take that next tack. And when he does, usually back in the summer when he was on that really cold streak, that is when you saw him swinging at pitches that were down in the zone and just really weren't his pitch. But now you're starting to see him be a little bit more selective. And when he does be a little bit more selective and wait for his pitch and be a little more patient, that is when you see a much better version of Luis Garcia. So it's kind of similar to what we talked about with Lane Thomas. He's got to find this consistency because he has the talent to be an everyday second baseman. It's just he has to grasp it all and get it all together at one time. And when he does do that, that's when you see this hot streak of 11 hits over 5 games played against the Braves, as well as the White Sox, whatever it is. Luis Garcia is a stock up for me this week. Now we get a stock down for Mr. Yoan Adon. 13 earned runs in his last 3 starts. Those were 13 2/3 innings pitched, also 22 hits, 3 home runs, and 12 walks. And again, 13 2/3 innings pitched. Yoan Adon, man, he's got potential. He does. I like what I see out there at times. It's like the first 2 innings, it seems to be going well. And then all of a sudden, the wheels just fall off. He starts walking batters. He starts missing in the zone. He has a fastball that's laid right down the middle for Ronald Acuna and all these different things. I want to like the prospect of Adon. I want to just sit there and say he's got what it takes at times. But also, he misses so much. In these situations where you're playing against the Braves, you can't be giving up 5 earned runs. It's just as simple as that. When you're giving up all these hits, when you're walking these guys and all these mistakes coming into one, the wheels have just fallen off for Yoan Adon here recently. Because back in August, he was having these starts where he'd have a bad start, and then he'd bounce back with a good start, and so on. He'd just continue that pattern. But over the last 3, they really haven't been good. And again, 12 walks over those 13 2/3 and 22 hits as well. That's never a winning formula. So when you talk about Adon and what we want to see from him, he's probably got another start left in him. But what do we want to see? Well, we just want to see a quality start, because at this point, Yoan Adon cannot be in the rotation going into next year. He just can't. And at this moment, I don't really think anyone would expect that as well. I don't think anyone out there should expect that, because it's not going to happen at this moment. Stock up. Drew Millis, the catcher. Again, a young guy, someone who has really stepped it up this year, was hitting the crap out of the baseball down in AA Harrisburg. Got the call up to AAA Rochester. Did solid there. And ever since Riley Adams got put on the IL, he's been up here. And what has he done? He's been really good. In his first 28 at-bats in the big leagues, he's got a 308 batting average, a 357 OBP, and a 500 slug, which is an 857 OPS. He's got 3 extra base hits with 2 doubles. He's got a home run as well. And he's looked solid behind the plate. And again, all the jokes that I made and that we all made about nailing Jackson Rutledge and his first ever start, his debut as a Nationals pitcher, you nail Rutledge in the back of the head, which was pretty funny now that we all know no one was injured. They're all laughing about it. So whatever. But Drew Millis, he's actually showed me, or Millis, rather. I always say Millis when it comes to him. But Drew Millis, he has showed us something to which he could be something. And when you talk about this Nationals and the catcher kind of depth position that we are in right now, you have Riley Adams. Riley has been really good this year. Obviously, has that hamate bone injury. He'll be out for the remainder of the season. Drew Millis, though, his name is now in the mix. Not just to be a backup catcher, a rotational catcher, whatever you want to call him. But this is a big league kind of player. This is the guy that you really want. And also when you're talking about him and what he has done this year, he's just been impressive. You look at him and he just kind of fits that mold of a big league catcher. He's kind of someone that has that calm effect to him. And as we saw with Millis behind the plate, he's been solid defensively as well. So there's really not much to dislike with Millis at this moment in time. It's a small sample size. Maybe he will get an opportunity to be the backup catcher next year. Maybe the Nationals try to do something with Riley Adams, moving him over to first base. That's kind of been something we've all been clamoring for quite some time. But with that said, would Adams really kind of be that guy that we want at first base? Because they did try that in 2022, but they ultimately never made that trip up to the majors to try that out. So we don't really know with what Adams is at first base or what he isn't, because they did try that. Obviously, he never played first base at all this season. So I don't really know what to expect with that, even though that's what we all want. Riley Adams has the power, but Millis, really impressive so far through his first 28 at-bats, and also defensively catching, really good. Stock down for Kyle Finnegan. When you are a closer in Major League Baseball, I got some simple rules for you. When you come in for save opportunities, if you come in for one inning, I have to trust you. I have to trust you in every situation in the ninth. If you're up by 3 runs, if it's a tied game, if you're up by 1 run, whatever it is, I have to trust you. And really, trust stems from allowing runs. You can get in jams. It's going to happen. It's going to happen with every single closer out there, every single bullpen guy out there. They're going to get in trouble. They're going to get in jams. How can you get out of that? Well, Kyle Finnegan has not gotten out of these jams. He's given up an earned run in 4 of his last 5 appearances and blowing a save opportunity in one of those as well. Kyle Finnegan, with the game on the line so far this season, he's been good. But over the last month, really the last month and a half now, Kyle Finnegan has not been good. He has not been getting his job done, in which he was so good in the middle portion of the season. We all know the way it started. It was awful back in April. But really since May all the way through mid-August or so, Kyle Finnegan was almost dominant even. You could have made that opportunity and say, this guy is going to be the closer. He's got the stuff. He's got the look. He seems to be calm, cool, and collected. But ever since then, I don't know what's going on. I just don't know. Because he's given up all these earned runs. He's walking guys. He's not striking them out at the rate that he once was. He's just simply not getting outs in the most productive way that he was back in midsummer. I don't know what to make of it. I just don't. But what he has done is just been solid, you could still say. But over the last week, really 2 weeks, it's been really bad. Just disastrous almost even, you could say. Stock down for Kyle Finnegan. Real quick stock up for the obvious, Jackson Rutledge, and what he did over the last 2 starts. 5 innings pitched again against the Braves. Only 3 hits, 4 strikeouts, and 2 walks in that action as well. Jackson Rutledge, he's showing us something. And if he has another start, I think his name will be in ink to start in 2024. Maybe be a 4th or 5th starter, because I think Jake Irvin's in that mix as well. Patrick Corbin will still likely be in the mix. Josiah Gray, Mackenzie Gore. There's going to be some interesting things that'll happen here in Washington, D.C. Will they add another starting pitcher in free agency? Who really knows at this moment in time? But Jackson Rutledge, again, if he does one more good start to end the year, he's going to be in my starting rotation no matter what entering 2024. We need to find out what he is. Former first-round pick, a lot of hype around him. Let's see what the Nationals can do with him, because Jackson Rutledge, he's looked good in his last 2 starts, and these aren't against bad teams. One of them is coming up against the best team in all of baseball, and that is the Atlanta Braves. Thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And before we move on and talk about Sean Doolittle retiring, let me tell you guys about our friends over at Sleeper. And guys, the MLB playoffs are right around the corner, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is now, with studs like Acuna, Betts, and Ohtani. Pick more or less on stats for these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to 100-time payout on Sleeper. And get your picks right, and you could win big. What I love so much about Sleeper is that they are just updated so frequently, whether it be the advice that you give them. And also, I also like the group chat function with all my guys. We play fantasy baseball with them, and it is just so fun to have all that banter. And also pick their mind, because maybe they think Ronald Acuna could hit a home run that night, and maybe I don't. So we have that good banter. I want that for you guys as well. And all you have to do is use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Again, promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Sleeper terms views for details. Please use promo code Locked On. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And as we all know, Sean Doolittle, 2018 All-Star, 2019 World Series champion, one of the best trades Mike Rizzo made back in midway point of 2017, getting him and as well as Ryan Madsen from the Oakland A's in return for Jesus Luzardo and as well as Blake Trinan. Obviously, those two guys our stud pitchers. But what Sean Doolittle did for us was he was the rock in our bullpen, in which at that moment in time, the Nationals did not have no rock. And ever since then, that trade in 2017 really kind of revamped this National staff, because as soon as he got here, 30 innings pitched, a 2.4 ERA with the Nationals back in 2017. He finished 28 games, had 21 saves in that time as well. And then in 2018, he just continued his dominance and had his best season as a pro in 2018. A 1.6 ERA and 43 appearances, 25 saves, 45 innings pitched, and also 60 strikeouts. I saw a stat the other day in which Sean Doolittle's fastball had one of the higher whiff rates back in when he was the Nationals in 2018 than as any pitcher in baseball at that moment in time. I think when talking about Doolittle, he was always kind of like the guy who just found a way. He was never the filthiest of guys. He never had this filthy breaking pitch. But what he did have was this fastball that he would just get so many swings and misses on, so many whiffs. That is kind of what separated Sean Doolittle, in which it wasn't a 99-mile-per-hour fastball. This was a 94, 95-mile-per-hour pitch, sometimes 93. Sean Doolittle generated swings and misses in 2018 off of a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. His spin rate was incredible. He was kind of one of the first guys to really go into the lab and figure out what to do with his fastball, and which obviously was one of the better pitches from 2018 all the way through 2019, generating a ton of swings and misses. I believe he had a 40% whiff rate on his fastball back in 2018. That is how dominant Sean Doolittle was here as a National, but also the most important season of them all. In 2019, while the numbers, they may not seem all that great, a 4.05 ERA in 63 games, we all know why his ERA was inflated. Number one, you threw him out there every single day. Every single day. Sean Doolittle was called upon, and he may not have finished every single game. He may not have had all the saves in the world, but what he did do was stay consistent. And really, what happened there in 2019, he kind of fell off there in the last 2 months of the regular season, but he came in the postseason, and he still shut the door down, as well as Daniel Hudson. Sean Doolittle, by far and away, one of the Nationals' best relievers in organizational history. Now, if you want to consider Blake Trinan in there as well, sure. If you want to consider Rafael Soriano back in the day, sure, whatever. Sean Doolittle is the guy when it comes to the Nationals bullpen. And really, again, a very slept-on trade from Mike Rizzo, a Nationals legend. And he only spent 5 seasons here, considering he spent 6 in Oakland. But Sean Doolittle was just always good. He was good for this Nationals team. And when you talk about Doolittle, the Nationals don't win 2019 without him. They just simply don't. Because you wouldn't be stockpiling the wins that you did even through the mid-May March when you were 19-31. You wouldn't have had 19 wins if it weren't for Sean Doolittle. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have had that stretch in the second half that allowed you to trade for Daniel Hudson and name that reliever as well. The Nationals, they did something good when it came to Sean Doolittle. And when we made that trade back in 2017, that was a time in which we so desperately needed a click. We needed something in the back end of the bullpen to really hold that fort down. And Sean Doolittle did every part of that. He was just great. Sean Doolittle, as we all kind of saw, the retirement was coming around the corner. He had the patellar tendon injury and eventually just kind of gave up on him this season. But Sean Doolittle, Nationals legend, no matter what direction you look at it. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, real quick, the Nationals, they're not in a playoff race, but an NL East team is, the Miami Marlins. They got 3 games up against the New York Mets starting tomorrow. And then, they're 1 game back from the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs, they got a 3-game series down in Atlanta. It's going to be a wild finish. And oh my God, I can't wait. Good luck, Chicago Cubs, going up against this Brave staff, because they've been a little bit cooler lately. Spencer Strider is human nowadays. But even then, I don't want to match up with this Braves team come October. So, of course, good luck to those teams. Other than that, the Nationals, you play the Orioles tomorrow, in which, again, Not going to be all too fun. I'll catch you guys on the flip side.